Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to this midweek review with Mr. John. I'm Mr. John, and man, have I got a story for you today. But I want to ask you a question off the bat. I know I do that quite a bit, but this one I think happens to all of us. Have you ever judged something before you got to know it? Like, have you ever said, no, I ain't eating that, it looks gross? But then somebody kind of convinces you to taste it, and man, it just blows you away. So there's a story in the Bible where Jesus, now we've been talking a lot about how Jesus has been going out and finding his disciples, and Jesus is still on that path. He's looking for people that can help him run his ministry, to help him bring everybody to know who his Father is, and those will be the ones that end up spreading the gospel amongst the nations, right? But he's still in the searching process right now when he's walking along and he passes this table, right? And there's a man sitting there. And this man, his name is Matthew. And Jesus walks up to him and he asks him to follow him. Now, we have seen that when Jesus says, follow me, a lot of the disciples dropped everything and followed Jesus. And Matthew is one of those. Matthew drops everything and immediately follows Jesus. Now, Matthew is pretty excited to be following Jesus, and so he has a dinner at his house. Everybody come to my place and we're going to have a dinner. So a lot of the people that came were people like Matthew. Now, I didn't tell you what Matthew was doing at that table. Matthew was a tax collector. Now, tax collectors were viewed very, very poorly in those days. They were actually, you had sinners, and I'm not even 100% sure that taxpayers were kind of in this area, right? Maybe even sort of below what a sinner was, because taxpayers back then were to go out and collect the money that the government there, Rome or whoever the presiding leaders were, to get the tax money from them, usually pulling a lot of money from people to pay to the government. And that kind of was looked upon negatively because most of the people didn't agree with the government. But not only did the taxpayers take the money for the government, a lot of these taxpayers would increase the amount that you had to pay and then keep that extra. They would put it in their pockets, their wallets, their purses, whatever, and they would keep that money. So they were really notorious kind of as stealing from people who had just barely enough to get by and taking this money to enrich themselves as well as the government. And it was not looked highly upon. So they go to this dinner, and there are other people like Matthew, like I said there, tax collectors and sinners there. But also at this dinner were some people from the religious sect, the Pharisees. And they look about and they're like almost to a point of disgusted, right? And the Pharisees look at the disciples and say, how can you be here with him and these people? How can you have a guy that you're following who is going to be here with these people, the tax collectors and the sinners? This is unheard of. It's unimaginable, right? They couldn't fathom how a guy who is preaching the gospel of God and telling people about the Father and having people follow him to do that would be hanging out with what they considered bad people. So before the disciples can even say a word, Jesus jumps in and he goes, listen, who would I be trying to talk to? Right? I'm not going to talk to those who already know and are righteous. I'm going to talk to the tax collectors and sinners because I want them to know who the Father is so they can see the error of their ways and hopefully they can come to know who God is, my Father. Now, if you were to say, go to the doctor, right? Now, I know we go for checkups, but if you just go to the doctor and the doctor goes, hey, this is the emergency room. What can we do for you? What do you need? And you go, I'm fine. Nothing wrong with me. What's the doctor going to do? He's probably just going to go, okay, you can go. You're fine. Just go ahead and go. But if you go into the emergency room and say you have a broken arm, and it's not pretty, the doctor is going to rush to help you, right? He's going to do what it takes to fix your arm. And that's what Jesus is saying here. Listen, we need to mend and fix those people who are broken. Their sin is causing brokenness from God. They instead of having a connection with God, that connection is broken, and we need to reconnect that connection to God. Those are the people I am really trying to talk to. Now, if you're righteous, you can listen to what I have to say and talk about the Father, and hopefully you keep and continue to grow and that connection gets stronger, right? We know what it's like when we have things that can come apart very easily. Maybe you have a piece of paper and it's ripped almost all the way across, but yet it's your homework and you got to turn it in. And instead of rewriting everything, you take some tape and you rebond that connection. Sometimes that's what we need, is to fix some minor things. Doesn't change anything that we did before. It just fixes the things that have gone wrong. That's what Jesus is doing here. I love that Jesus sees the people beyond the righteous. He sees the people that may have issues and may not know who he is at the moment and need forgiveness of sin. Because it's great to be forgiven. And if God didn't see those people as favorable and the people he needed to reach, those that had sin or the tax collectors at the time would have no hope of eternity. And Jesus wants everybody, God wants everybody to have that chance to choose him for eternity. So guys, hey, verse is coming up. I hope you're having a great week. I'm praying for you. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye, my friends. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13.